I think that's exactly right.
Well, I read the thing and I went to the gas station. The gas station.
Cool.
We must have been. That little clock right by.
Yeah, directly.
Are we ready to go? Because we're, nope, wait. Are we ready?
We're ready. So Cheryl is out of town, babysitting her family for herself. I got the shorts job.
So you're in charge.
Okay,
let me know when we're ready.
My wife. Where do you go? Yellowstone.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order and begin our meeting. Jason? We're gonna do agenda review first, and then we'll.
Okay, so item 1 is Miller Park and Older Industrial Park. It's a subdivision, modifying an existing 1-lot subdivision into 2. And then also wanting to approve a site plan called Boulder Industrial Park on the north side. So this is the existing lot. They're cutting it basically right here. Right across there. This is the site plan we're talking about. This will remain a parking lot but not be part of the site plan itself. It's currently zoned M2. They're not proposing to change that at all. So this is the existing, the proposed parking lot, office warehouse. You got some garage doors in there. So it's going to be industrial type office warehouse. This parking is what's required for that development. They are going to include this, including landscaping along here, but this is not required to have parking. So the landscaping all will come around. This will be that's what we're looking at as far as the Boulder Industrial Park.
So it'll just match what's kind of already done in the area.
Similar type, tilt up type.
Why would anyone even oppose such an idea?
I'm asking you that. Why are you?
I don't. Well, tell me why I should be opposed.
There's adequate parking for the space.
Adequate parking. In fact,
Everything complies with the regulations you said, right?
It does. They have the surplus parking. Right now, you've got business now. There's any hour as a service that they kind of use this as access into their storage yard as well. So that'll still be there. This will be kind of surplus. Some businesses across the street, I think, still over and kind of parking back there as well. This, that's just kind of standalone, even though they're counting it as part of.
How many square feet? Do you have any idea that what the building will have there?
19,000 square feet
19
for the building. Yeah, 19,337.
Pretty good size.
Yeah. 4 different units. So this is the existing plant. Proposed 2-lot subdivision green line for some reason.
So it'll be what kind of you say office as well as like?
So they're going to have some office, so it's kind of like an any hour where they store their plumbing equipment or something like that. Store their trucks potentially, inventory, and then have a small office. Typical that we see.
Yeah.
So there's a landscaping. It's nicely colored, but got nice trees along there. Right now, it's nothing. Beats the ordinance.
Of course, they're not required to put that landscaping in.
They
They are required to do that. Who checks to see that that actually happens?
So Michaela and Cheryl go out. Actually,
Do they
physically
really?
inspect.
I tell you, that would really scare them all, bet if she went out there. They were in compliance.
So here's the proposed elevation. So it's like walk. So it'll actually be nice. Not that the area's bad. So this is the vacant piece that you're seeing now from the corner. You see the any hours in the background. So this front corner is what's going to be Any questions on? So 2 steps, one, a plat amendment, and then the other is site plan. Item 2 is a Mi Ranchito current restaurant, of course, probably won't eat. This is the restaurant here. They own this home right here. They've recently, in the past, probably 1.5 years or so, went in and just fenced this backyard off of this home and heard that first it was gravel, and then they just asphalted it without city process. This property outlined in red is an actually R6 zone, so it's a residential zone, obviously tied to the house. So what they're proposing to do is rezone what they can in the back to meet the requirements. The city's requiring them to see the zone R65 to rezone the portion of that. So they're still going to have to maintain the home on the lot size, which is about 8,000 square foot, based on where the home is and the 25 setback. It's going to be about 8,000 square feet. So they're going to maintain that in the residential zone, and then once we rezone that back portion, so they can continue to have that, they'll have to modify the parking a little bit. Take out the portion of this, so the setback meets the requirement, and add 12 stalls, so lunch hours, but at least there's be able to at least accommodate a few more. We've been working with them, and it's taken us a while to get to this point. Out here now, just supporting their rezone to go to C2, so it's part of the business. Separate the 2 out, so the home stands alone by itself, and the business.
And you said they own the home?
So that, yeah, the company will be Ranchito. I think I'm not positive, but I think one of the cooks or a few of the cooks.
Yeah, it's an employee who's renting it from.
Yeah.
I met them both. I went to the public meeting and
The husband and wife, so the one is the son of the original owner. He
yeah,
owns this one, and another brother owns one. Paul's tried to work with them to try to we're just kind of this kind of helps them out to get a little bit more parking. Those times where it's.
Who did you say had worked with them to try to get them to relocate?
So the University
Woodbury.
Place, they tried to help them relocate, maybe build another building, let them go into that.
But the land that they're on
The
now,
land they own, their land.
that's what I thought. So Woodbury wanted to buy their land and help them relocate.
Well, a portion of their land.
Okay,
They need to widen out the intersection to State Street, so they were trying to work with them on picking up a sliver of property and then getting some parking on the backside.
I see, yeah.
Couldn't come to terms.
Now, when I've been there, it seems like every time, and I don't go there often, not like I used to, but parking is always an issue.
This will at least give it 12.
the overflow makes a big difference
You mean when you say,
because it's already there.
you mean that little parking area that they've got now makes a big difference? When you say overflow, you mean?
So what we're talking about today, they've already actually asphalted
Yeah,
it.
it's just a matter of formally improving what's
Yeah.
already been done.
Now they'll need to modify.
Well, they'll lose some
Do some.
of this plan because they went almost all the way up to the back of the house.
Okay, did they? Okay.
So we've been working with them to come into compliance.
Why would they not just let it stay as it was if they were able to get by with it?
Well, they just want more parking. They
Well,
realize.
no, but you're saying they had more parking if.
And she said her husband just did it and then they got caught.
It wasn't legal.
So they had to bring it into compliance.
Okay, they got
Yeah.
caught. That's,
Someone was
okay, that answers it. Someone
Yeah.
Someone said it's not legal, and so they're making it legal. Okay.
This white portion, that's, this purchase around that they put in.
Some danged attorney got in the middle of that. Is that what?
Well, I think that they said their,
Might have been city.
It was Michaela.
their
She's driving
water,
around.
their water overflow was not properly graded. Sort of backflow.
Okay,
So we're working with them.
yeah.
Any
One
questions?
option they had is they could have asked to rezone the entire house to commercial,
Right,
but
right.
we didn't think that would have gone very well, so
Yeah.
to keep the
Yeah.
house so residential.
Yeah.
And it accesses back to commercial.
So you went to the neighborhood meeting there, and how did people feel about it generally? Any opposition to it?
No, there's only one other person.
Oh, I had a question.
Yeah, so you said
Or
Woodbury
two.
was interested in it. What do they own around there and why were they even interested in the beginning?
You see, this is the access into their mall. So they were wanting to widen this up a little bit more. So what they wanted is just to be able to get this through. So they would lose their garage. I think the Harrison on the others. So that's the only reason. So the University Place owns this piece here and then.
And the three houses next to
They
the
do not
house we're
own
talking
the
about.
restaurant there. They do own these two. So they don't own that. And just don't. So it's just the access into their mall.
Are they hoping to expand?
They're hoping to expand the growth.
We were actually working with them to facilitate meetings with Rancho because we want that line down as well. In the future, there's a signal plan to go there at some point.
Plan is to relocate signal 12 south up to this location, help out with traffic operations at State Parkway, allow more storage, make it work more efficiently. But Woodbury, they'd like to have a dual left in, and with that geometry and the two lanes coming out, they need to widen it. Woodbury needs to come to the table and work on that leg of the intersection since that leg of it's private. People help them out if we can. We're willing to go ahead and relocate the signal and do some striping out State Street, and so is UDOT. But Woodbury's got to figure out how they can work that.
They do own the property on the other side.
But you don't know this one here either.
They don't?
No.
Oh, I thought they did.
So this piece right here, the cabin on our used to, maybe it's
It
just,
still is.
Yeah.
they don't own that piece, but they own the Trader Joe's piece. That's not today, but that's, yeah,
Just
there
understand.
was more widening. Any questions on the rezone portion? Okay, last one. There's this existing home. This is the backyard. They went to a lot of effort to put gates and all that kind of stuff. Probably relocate.
Well, initially they used it for employee parking, they said. Which is why they put the gates up. So I was, when they turned it into overflow, I said, you might get an extra spot if you got rid of your gates, because they kind of block access.
That's true. So next one is a rezone. It's the autistic school down on South Geneva Road. The school is existing. It was built in the county, annexed into the city about 5+ years ago. What they're proposing is to do some development in the back. The autistic school, it's currently zoned OS5. It came into the city as a holding zone. Open space, 5 acre zone is what OS5 stands for. What they're proposing to do is a professional office, which is a permitted use. The school is permitted. Underlying general plan is also professional service, which supports the PO zone. So the front portion, which is just over 4 acres, existing school facility, they want to rezone to PO. And then the back portion, they want to zone to a PRD, which, how many, it says 25 lots. It's two parking. I got a closer view of this. Here's the proposed subdivision. So single family lots is what they're proposing. And they're proposing to build cottages, and I'll show you the elevation in a minute, but it's designed for those students or past students that have autism. Okay. So if they have mother, father, they have a couple kids or a kid that's autistic, the parent still gets services in the school. The proposal, and I don't know if there's anything tied to having all the units with autistic students, but that's what they're. PRD zone requires 2.5 stalls per unit. So they have your 2-car garage. They had to take some of those and have independent parking lots for visitors, so they can have the off the street. This is a public street coming around, and I'll show you access up to Geneva Road. This one goes south to Peyton Crossing, which would then tie into 2000 south. So it's not
Is that a standard road?
standard water street, sublocal, 28 feet of asphalt. Sidewalks, you can see separated sidewalks around as well. Lot sizes, some of them are, this is 8,000, some are a little bit smaller. The PRD allows them to break it into smaller lots, provided it meets all the other standards. Granted, it's a rezone, so it's subject to city council approval of PRD. So the red is the potential for having direct access out to Geneva Road. This will be a secondary fire access that comes through, and eventually this will punch in big crossing, which is here. 2000s. And this is it's called Farm Haven Cottages. This is the single story, potentially have basements subject to groundwater certain studies. There is site water potentially. So 2-bedroom units is what they're proposing. It's 2 different floor plans. So that's there. This, of course, is the existing autistic school.
So will the road go to the right of the school?
So let me go to, so this is the farm to the south. So you can see that in order to get the geometry to work, so it's perpendicular to the Geneva Road. They're actually clipping this corner on this gentleman's part. So he's gonna have to agree to do that. We've got an agreement in writing from both property owners that he'll do that, but we would recommend the planning commission considering the motion to ask them to do it before it goes to council. So we get that in writing from this property owner, he agrees. So we don't want to have it rezoned and then you can't get that access.
Is that Cherry Hill Farm? Is that what?
Cherry Hill is above.
Above it, okay.
So, yeah, this is south. There's schools right here. So they'll basically parking will modify this slightly. Parking will remain. This will come in. Direct access out.
So is the school's of course a private school? And it's the same entity that owns the school doing the development on the
My
backside.
understanding is they will retain ownership of this land.
Oh, and rent the places on the back.
I don't know if they're going to still own it. That's something we have.
Yeah, last time they were trying to. I was gonna ask about that because it was inconsistent between what was said in like the materials we got and what was on the statement. So like kind of how that was. I would double check.
So any specific questions about, so this is a PRD, so this portion we're gonna look at tonight is simply for the rezone. Once it goes to the rezone, the council, let's say they approve the PRD, this concept plan and the elevations will be part of the zone, then they'll come back through to the planning commission for an actual site to show how this works, and they'll be tied to the homeowners site.
Have you done any evaluation on traffic effect? I mean, when we start congesting that type of, that many places in that space that's there, and we keep expanding out and doing the same thing, is the neighborhood going to be able to take the impact of all the cars that are going to be generated because we just keep double stacking everything really heavy? I mean, they're not gonna, as Geneva widens, they're probably not gonna use that to get in and out. They're gonna go up to 2,000.
So there is a light.
Yeah.
2000 does have a light now, so there will be some stagger.
Right, so I think people are gonna take that back road to 2,000 to get onto Geneva as it gets busier and busier.
I would agree if you're going southbound, if you're going
Yeah.
northbound. Depending on the type of day.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we've done any analysis, because I mean, this is an early one, but if we just keep allowing the same kind of, heavy spacing for
So you're probably talking maybe
acreage.
1 or 2 extra lots versus a standard RA type subdivision. So it's not, I mean, to your point, yes, there's a few more homes, but it's not over and above what would typically standard subdivision.
It'll be interesting to, there's no doubt that Geneva Road is very busy. But likely we're talking probably in 2 years, I would say it's more realistic. Our Lakeview Parkway will be built and you'll have 5 lanes that will kind of start to veer off to the west. That'll tie it all the way down into Provo Center Street and then continue down through and then actually go out to I-15, as well as all the Provo neighborhoods probably tying to that. So it's going to be interesting to see what the traffic pattern does here. Because in this spot of Geneva Road, they're not intending to widen it any wider, they intend to keep it. So as Lakeview Parkway is built and the rest of Provo is developed, it'll be, I'm not to say that it won't be busy, but I think it will change because you'll be able to have a direct connect through on the Lakeview Parkway with how it'll tie in order to use this piece of Geneva Road, you'll have to take a left. So it'll be interesting to see what's gonna happen in that area. And to your point, there are a few folks that are gonna be developing, but there's a lot of this OS5. Cherry Hill Farm isn't gonna develop anytime soon. You have a large AC piece there. Above that, there's another piece, and then north of them is the Clingers, and then you have the temple. There's really a lot of land in here that's likely could be open space for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, if we wondered, you know, how the impact, because if it starts filling in and we don't think ahead, we might have a real big problem, I'm sure, 5-10 years down the road.
And I agree, and the OS5 was one of my two main questions, the OS5 and what it was there for, and if we're intending to leave open space, because if we start carving it up, it's a real plan. You kind of said it was like a holding.
The intent of the OS5 was, I mean, you can develop in the OS5, it's 1 unit per 5 acres. So the intent years ago was to hold it, so knowing that nobody's gonna develop typically in an OS5, so they would have to come back through this process to change it. That's the point of the OS5, to give a zone, knowing full well they're gonna have to come through the public process to try to change it to something, whether it's PRD, whether it's R8, R12.
So with the OS5, are there any other locations in Orem that have OS5?
There's some of the mouth of the canyon, typically it's those rural or outreached areas that haven't developed already.
Which we're getting smaller
Yeah.
and smaller, so we're obviously chipping away at that.
Where Helena lives, that was Orchard, OS5, that's been rezoned to. So over time, we have rezoned these properties to other zones that do single family.
Okay, and then my other question is about PRDs, because I think there's been some long-term confusion, because I was under the impression we were not doing PRDs and that they had been stopped.
So PD,
It's the PDs that have been stopped. What's a PD?
so plan development, which is a 3 acre minimum. And it's basically, you come in and propose what you want, create your own text, and then the city and the developer and the city council all work together to come up with a common solution to what you want. And then the text is written to match that development.
So how does that differ from?
A PRD has a the text is already approved, you basically meet the standards, you can go to the council and get a rezone. It's still, both of them are still rezoned.
Mhm.
The PD adds a lot more flexibility for developers and the city to negotiate on, okay, I want this, okay, then you're gonna give me this, and whether it's widening or a sidewalk or trail or whatever like that. So that it negotiates what the zone's going to be, a PD zone does. So a lot of the higher densities on State Street, the malls, another example of PD zones. So they have a lot different exceptions than the standard C2 zone has. So that's what the PD zone has been used for historically. PRD was written to, it allows a little higher density, but there's also certain standards that are just in the code. You meet them, great. If you don't do a PRD type of thing. So if density is already built in, the height's built in, the fencing requirements built in, streets are built in. They'll all have to be public streets in a PRD. One thing about a PRD versus a single family lot is we don't allow accessory apartments in a PRD. So you're already getting the benefit of a higher density. So we're not allowing any of these units to have an accessory apartment. Whereas an R8 zone, you could. So instead of 22 lots, you could have 44 potential, right, units of sub-renting to your basement or whatever. In this instance, the PRD stops that, doesn't allow for that. So there are certain standards built into it. So that's the difference between the PD, one's a set standards. You still have to go through the process because we still require elevations, we still require the concept plan, it still has to meet all of the standards within and has to show that on the concept plan in order for us to process it through the council. A PRD is pretty much a blank slate when you write your own code. If you look at all of our PDs, we have about 50 PD.
You got it backwards.
We have about 55 PD zones in the city, and
Yeah.
pretty much all of them. There's maybe 2 or 3 that are similar. The rest of them are totally different from each other.
River Breeze that we just did was a.
So we still allow PDs, but they're very strict in where we allow.
Because I thought they were limited, are they like manufacturing or like some specific?
Manufacturing or not, if it's a non-residential use, you can do a PD. With the exception of anywhere along a major corridor, so University Park, State Street, 8th North, Center Street, don't allow PDs within 500 feet.
Thank you for the clarification, because I think.
It's easy to
there's been-
get PD.
Yeah, well, and we haven't dealt with the PRD in the last while, so.
So this housing, these farm haven cottages, that would be for families of autistic
Yeah, their thought is to
Children?
get housing.
But is that really relevant at all? I mean, if someone didn't have an autistic kid, if they went in there to buy one of these,
I think because they're rental, and I wouldn't say that they necessarily return them away, but I think the idea is that they have a lot of graduates. And it's, throughout the county, there's a lot of kids that have autism, so that this
So that-
allows them to be in a space that they're familiar with.
right, and other people that understand what they're dealing with, but it doesn't require that they have,
I don't know that we can require that,
that's my
but
question.
if it's rentals, then because they're owning the whole,
Yeah.
they could obviously
Yeah,
do what
you
they
would think
want.
that would be
Most likely it would be similar,
attractions to have people come to the school there.
depending on the severity of autism,
Yeah.
it depends, but some, students are different, interaction with unfamiliar, things. as others.
This road that we're talking about that goes west of Provo, what do you call that, Parkway?
Lakeview Parkway.
And that, where's that going to run? It goes past the airport, I guess, the Provo Airport. Continues on north on the west side of Provo High School. And then when does it connect with, where does it?
It's gonna connect right here. So come right along, so these guys have left a little swath, it's gonna come right. Connecting the road, down the road. And it's gonna come along here and then tie somehow. And over and it's gonna, Geneva Road's gonna tee in this way.
Okay,
So the through traffic is gonna go on this road, this you have to actually turn, actually turn to get on the Geneva. So Geneva's not going to be a straight shot now, you're gonna have to actually physically turn. This would be the main axis.
It'll end up looking like Geneva and Staked in PG, right? Where
Something.
T's like that, so it's kind of awkward to hit Geneva. It'll be awkward to stay on Geneva.
Yeah,
So it'll flow into the Lakeview Parkway from
and
Geneva.
then there is a road, if you've seen the light right here, they've got a section of the street that will actually go westbound and tie into Park, so they can actually have a straight shot here. Which, so if you're going to the airport, trying to get an I-15. You can still.
where does it connect to I-15? Where's the,
So you got 12 University Parkway, which is off the screen.
okay, right,
This is 2000, it goes under the bridge, up Sand Hill Road.
okay.
Comes all the way down to where University Avenue interchanges in Provo. He said that's actually, because you can go west from there.
Okay.
Go around.
When is that to be constructed? Is that soon or is it, part of it's been done, I know that.
Yeah, Orem's portion, we
Yeah.
have a consultant that we have finished with our agreements. We'll have a kickoff meeting here in a few weeks. They'll design, and then it'll just be a function of, once we have all the right of way procured, then we can go to construction. It would be nice to time it with UDOT's Geneva Road project. They have money ready to go, and they would like to start building the widening of it next spring. But they understand that it would make sense for them to wait for the construction team for our project. Likely it will be probably spring of 2025, if I had to guess. I mean, right away usually takes a while. We'll go in with the property owners and start negotiating price.
Who does it? Do we hire people to do the roads?
Yeah, so what'll happen is we will hire someone off of the state ombudsman's list for the initial appraisal. They'll come in, they'll provide the report, we'll contact the property owner. If they don't agree with it, then they can hire someone off that list. The prices come in the same, then they come in the same, but if they're different, then we negotiate. And then once that happens, if they happen to be a homeowner, and there's a home there that we're taking, then we would start to talk about relocation costs and things like that. So it's a very fair and open and transparent process.
But if some choose not to do it, it delays the whole process.
Then what happens is if they go through the process,
Yeah.
they can't come to any sort of agreement, then the state would likely come up with a contract. Or that's what we would do too, but it's hardly ever do we do that. Even the projects that we had where we used MAG funding, so we had to go through the same state process. We've never done that.
Do we have any more questions directly related to 3.3 that want to be asked?
I would like to ask, could you just clarify this Geneva Road widening?